Let's take a look at Quant. Last time we looked at Quant was on October the 22nd. Here is a recap. This could be the triple bottom, and Quant is in the process of reversing the direction. The key now is for Quant to be able to close the day over the 10 days as well as the 50 days moving average. So I like to see Quant trade at about 302 or above. That would be the key price, because at 302, Quant would be trading above both of the 10 days and the 50 days. Stabilize over that, Quant would then reach the next resistance level at 325. 325 is right at this resistance trend line. That would be a major resistance that Quant need to cross over. Cross over that, Quant would then run up to about 348, where it would also be retesting this prior high. Cross over that would take Quant to retest the prior high at 429. So all of this is looking good. However, there is one negative side, because if we look at the moving averages, 3 days ago, we had this crossover where the 10 days dropped below the 50 days, and now it's lagging behind the 50 days. So that is one of the bearish sides. So here's the key. If the price continued to trend higher and then Quant trade over the 302, then there's a very high probability that the 10-day would reverse direction and then cross over and lead the 50 days. Then we would be out of the potential bearish side. For 2 straight days, Quant was able to trade over this 50 days moving average. But then after that, the price broke down, dropped below the 50 days and then the 10 days. And for the last 4 days, it has been struggling. Today, Quant is down over 2% and is trading at 280. The negative side is the 10 days dropped below the 50 days. I was hoping that if Quant can stabilize at or above 302, the 10-day would reverse direction. But that wasn't the case. The 10 days continue to trend downward, and that is not a good sign. Now, looking at Quant on this 1-hour chart, when the price dropped to about 264, then bounced right up to about 329, retrace, dropped to about 280 and bounced back up. So it was setting up this lower high and then higher low. So essentially, if we look at this, Quant was forming this symmetrical wedge, and the price is trading very close to this apex. So within the next few hours, Quant would either break to the upside or break down to the downside. Break to the upside could technically take Quant up to about 350. Break to the downside could take it all the way down to about 230. But the first major resistance would be right at the 264. Go back to the daily chart in the near term. The chart does not look good. We have the 10 days drop below the 50 days. And there isn't any indications that the 10-day would reverse direction and trend higher. Quant is still trading below this 10 days. It's very important for Quant to cross over and stabilize over the 10 days until we can see Quant trade at or above this key price number, which is 295. Then I'm not expecting to see Quant trading up, most likely in the short term. If Quant continue to trade below the 10 days, then there's a very high probability that we would see Quant retest this prior low at 264. And depends on how Bitcoin would perform. If Bitcoin were to retrace, then there's a very high probability that we may even see a breakdown, and Quant could potentially drop down to about 228. Fast forward, this is the daily chart for Quant, and the data I have is to 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on November 4th. Last time we looked at Quant was right at this point, October the 22nd. That when Quant was on the verge of either breaking out or breaking down of this symmetrical wedge. After that, Quant actually broke out, ran all the way up, but the minute it tested the 50 days moving average, the white line get rejected. And after that, we saw this major drop in price. Quant ended up dropped below the red line, which is the 10 days moving average, and closed right below that. And after that, Quant was struggling could not cross over the 10 days and continue to trend lower. Yesterday, the price dropped all the way down to about 265, where it tested this prior support line. And as you can see, every time when the price dropped and tested this support line, it bounced right back up. So if history were to repeat itself, then there is a very high probability that we may see some sort of price reversal at this point. But the key is this. Let's say if the price were to reverse direction and run up, it will retest this red line, which is the 10 days moving average. If there is a rejection at the 10 days moving average, then that is not a good sign, because then Quant would likely retrace, and I'm not sure if this 265 could hold support. Then we look at the possibility for the price to break down. Switch over to the 1 hour chart. Quant broke out of this symmetrical wedge, ran up, retested this prior high, and also at this point, that was the 50 days moving average, got rejected. Price then retraced and then bounced up. Since then, it has been trending downward, but following this downward channel, as you can see, every time when the price bounce up and test the resistance, it gets rejected. Retrace, the minute it hit the support, bounce right back up. Then the same thing again. Every time when it hit the resistance, it gets rejected. So right now we're looking at Quant. There is a very good probability that the price would reverse direction and bounce up. But the key here is whether or not Quant would garner enough buying support when it tests this resistance, be able to cross over that, and then eventually cross over the 10 days moving average, which is right at around 285. If Quant can stabilize over 285, then it is pretty much out of trouble. But if there is a rejection right at the resistance of this downward channel, then we're looking at the possibility for the price to break down. And then Quant would run down and retest the support of this downward channel again. Go back to the daily chart. Quant was very much in consolidation for most of July. As you can see, the Bollinger Band formed out very nicely. The width got really tight. Lots of momentum being built up. Then the price broke out. Quant ran from about $56 all the way to $430. Along the way, the Bollinger Band expanded, and it got to the point where it was way overextended. Then the price started to retrace. Bollinger Band began to contract. And very much after Quant dropped to about 265, then Quant entered this consolidation phase. As you can see, the price pretty much trade within this very tight trading range. And the Bollinger Band contracted more and more. Now the Bollinger Band is very tight. This is an indication a lot of momentum is being built up. Now after this big spike up in price, the retracement is normal, which allows the Bollinger Band to contract, rebuild, gather momentum before the next spike up in price. And if we look at how much Quant have retraced since it ran from 56 to about 430, so far, we look at the retracement, it's roughly about in between 38.2% to 50%. There is a good probability that Quant could even drop down to about 240, or that would be roughly about 50% retracement. So in summary, the retracement looks scary, but that's what it's supposed to do to allow the Bollinger Band to contract. The key for us is this here. Right at around the mid of October, we have this crossover where the 10 days drop below the 50 days. We need the 10 days to reverse direction and cross over the 50-day again. But the first thing is Quant needs to be able to trade over the 10 days moving average. That would be right at around 285. The minute Quant can trade at or above 285, then there's a very high probability that given the fact that the Bollinger Band, everything is set up so nicely, we would likely see another run up in price where Quant would eventually run up, retest the all-time high at 430 and reach my new target price of 650 in the short term. If the price gets rejected at the 10 days moving average, then there's a very good probability that we could see Quant drop as low as 240 or even 228 before the price stabilizes and then trend higher. Quant is a great project. There's nothing to worry about Quant. It is really going through the normal process after this major spike up in price. I am continue to be very bullish with Quant, and the retracement is just a good opportunity to accumulate more Quant tokens. That's it for this video, and don't forget to click that like button and reward me with a like if you appreciate the content that I'm presenting. Also, if you are new to my channel, don't forget to click that subscribe button and subscribe, and make sure you turn notification on. And if you have Twitter, make sure you follow me at VidMaxim, because I provide constant update on all of our favorite cryptos.